To celebrate 50 years of Jim Crockett Promotions, SilverStarr 85 was held last week on March 16th, and tonight we get to see just how game-changing the event truly was. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host Tyler Vance himself, and you're not. It's March 23rd, 1985. Last week, several more announcements were made for the upcoming WrestleMania on March 31st. Liberace will be the guest timekeeper, while legendary boxer Muhammad Ali will be the special guest referee in the main event when Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff do battle with WWF champion Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Speaking of the World Wrestling Federation, we'll be tuning into its flagship show first this week in Championship Wrestling, where Vince McMahon and the living legend Bruno Sammartino greet us on commentary. Immediately, we head to the ring for the first match, where Mr. X faces off against the Junkyard Dog in singles action. Mr. X offers his hand to JYD, but it was all a trick. However, it quickly backfires with several headbutts from the dog, so the masked man slides outside of the ring to shake the cobwebs loose. Back inside the squared circle, the Junkyard Dog hits a clothesline before applying a bear hug to his opponent, which Mr. X is able to break free of after raking the rabid animal's face. The masked man then slams JYD's head into the turnbuckle, but instead of doing damage, it causes that freak to begin barking. It seems the barking signified just how angry Junkyard Dog was with his opponent as he unleashes with an atomic drop before finishing Mr. X off with the thumb. This week's WWF update focuses on Andre the so-called Giant and his horrific actions on last week's TNT. And if you haven't seen that episode, I've linked it down below for your viewing pleasure. At WrestleMania, the 8th Wonder of the World will have no choice but to slam the true giant of the WWF in Big John Studd, because if the Frenchman fails, he will be forced to retire from professional wrestling. Au revoir, Andre. Luscious Johnny Valiant's client, Brutus Beefcake, is in action next as he faces off against Joe Mirto one-on-one. What the hell?
There's the beefer.
What is it with you, McMahon? First it's Ricky Steamboat being called the Steamer, and now you're calling Beefcake the Beefer? Maybe you should join Andre the so-called Giant in retirement after WrestleMania, pal. Mirto begins to jack his jaw at Valiant, which allows his client to take advantage of his opponent's turn back, attacking him from behind before going to absolute town on Joe. Brutus Beefcake then heads up to the second rope and drops an axe handle down onto Joe Mirto's head, who then subsequently reverses an Irish whip into a body slam. Mirto then makes the mistake of charging headfirst into Brutus Beefcake in the corner, resulting in him getting a knee to the face for his efforts. Seconds later, another knee to Mirto's face secures Brutus Beefcake the win. The WWF Women's Champion Leilani Kai, who is accompanied by her manager, the Fabulous Moolah, takes on Susan Starr in a non-title match next. Starr catches Kai with an immediate dropkick, but the WWF Women's Champion is able to immediately respond, slamming Susan down to the mat. Leilani Kai then misses a leg drop, which allows Susan Starr to hit a series of snapmares, which results in a near fall. Don't count Kai out. She is the WWF Women's Champion for a reason, and she recovers with a body slam before simply throwing her opponent aside like the trash that she is. Not only is Leilani Kai a capable champion, but she can be absolutely vicious between the ropes. Just look how vicious Kai is going after Starr, prompting the Fabulous Moolah to step in an attempt to save her client's opponent, while she tries to drag the woman away to safety.
Well, that's Moolah, though. What do you expect?
Susan Starr just won't give up, hitting the WWF Women's Champion with a monkey flip in the corner before running into Kai's knees, which allows Leilani Kai to claim the victory. More singles action immediately follows as Bobby Wade takes on David Sammartino, who right away hits a beautiful German suplex and then military presses Wade with ease, securing victory with a power slam seconds later. It's back-to-back action in the WWF this week as Rick Savage next takes on Tito Santana one-on-one. Santana hits Savage with a clothesline before employing a dropkick once the bell rings. Rick Savage then attempts to dodge Tito Santana's flying forearm at the last second, which results in Santana's forearm hitting the back of Savage's head instead. All Tito Santana has to do from there is apply the figure 4 leg lock and Rick is savaged into submission. A special segment of Piper's Pit comes to us this week from Madison Square Garden in front of the entire live New York crowd as Roddy Piper attempts to interview his upcoming WrestleMania opponent, Mr. T.
Second thought, I don't want to sit down. I don't trust you. Okay. You heard what I'm saying. I want to say something nice to you, and you ain't listening to me.
Once that rude actor finally allows Roddy Piper to speak, Hot Rod admits that he admires Mr. T's athletic background before going on to state that he just might be the most popular actor on TV in the world today. Knowing this, Roddy Piper gives Mr. T an offer that he can't refuse.
This is your chance to back out of the closed circuit fight without getting hurt. All these people that love you won't think any less of you because after all, you're going against men. I don't back out of nothing, that's why I'm here. It's up to you to back out if you want to back out, you know, this is your chance to back out.
Are you kidding me? Here you are continuously going on about how Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff are dead meat in the combat zone, sucker! But here you are writing checks that your mouth can't cash.
This is exactly what you could end up looking like here. Is that supposed to scare me? Show me some pictures? I come out here, I ain't gonna have time to be joking, you know. Per turn! You wanna see per turn? Hey, you wanna see silly? Look how silly! You really made me mad. Playing with my health now. That I don't play with. That's my health.
Jim Powers gets his career torpedoed as he partners with the New Zealand Nightmare, Tony Garea, in WWF Championship Wrestling's main event. They team up to face the next WWF Tag Team Champions, the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkoff, who are accompanied by their manager, Classy Freddie Blassie. Volkoff sings the Soviet-Russian national anthem, while some goof holds up a sign that security should confiscate. With the bell rung, Garea suffers a hip toss from the Iron Sheik before the Iranian misses an elbow, opening the way for the Kiwi to hit a body slam. But you'll never guess what happens next. Tony Garea does not do the smart thing and follow up on his momentum, no. Instead, he applies his favorite move, the headlock, as if that hold is going to do any lasting damage on the Iron Sheik. What an idiot Garea is, seriously. Powers gets the tag and immediately applies a headlock of his own. The Iron Sheik catches Jim Powers with a kick, which opens the way for Nikolai Volkoff to be tagged in. The Russian immediately lifts Powers up by the neck with a single hand before hitting his massive backbreaker before once again tagging in the Iranian. The Iron Sheik then hits a belly-to-belly suplex and then finishes Jim Powers off with the camel clutch. Ah, Powers, you had such promise. To finish WWF Championship Wrestling off, Mean Gene Okerlund interviews Bobby the Brain Heenan. The true giant of the WWF, Big John Studd, and the world's strongest man, Ken Patera, and Heenan has to slap away Gene Okerlund's grubby little hand as Gino tries to steal the $15,000. What a slime ball! Studd states what we already know will happen at WrestleMania on March 31st. Andre the so-called giant will fail to slam the true giant of the WWF in Studd, and the Frenchman will join the rest of the wonders of the world and disappear forever. Both crotchety David Crockett and Tony Schiavone greet us as the National Wrestling Alliance's flagship show, Worldwide Wrestling, begins, and they immediately call the action for the first match. Hollywood Johnny Tatum takes on a returning Pistol Pez Whatley in singles competition. Whatley immediately hits Tatum with 2 dropkicks, but is then caught by Hollywood with a knee to the gut, but goes on to miss an elbow, which leads to a shoulder lock being applied by the Pistol. Johnny Tatum finally hits his elbow once being released from the hold, and then slams Pez Whatley's head into the corner with no results, because the Pistol's magazine is empty, if you catch my drift. Whatley responds with a flying forearm and then lands a splash to get the win for his return. Backstage, crotchety David Crockett interviews Tully Blanchard in his Perfect 10, Baby Doll. It breaks my heart to have to say this, but unfortunately it's the truth. Tully Blanchard is no longer the NWA Television Champion, having lost it to the American Dream Dusty Rhodes at SilverStarr 85. I told myself I wouldn't get upset. But this was the very same match where Baby Doll was suspended above the ring in a steel cage thanks to the scheming the American Dream did prior to the match. Now, it takes a real man to go out on international television and admit without any excuses that a better man beat him, which is exactly what Tully Blanchard does when he discusses his match with Dusty Rhodes. It's a demonstration of true class before Blanchard requests, doesn't demand, like Rhodes does, a rematch for the NWA Television Championship, however, this time with bunkhouse rules.
But let's add a little Southern Texas flavor to it. Barbed wire that tears people's skin. And then we'll see once and for all who's the toughest man in professional wrestling.
Arn Anderson faces off against Jerkwad Steve Casey head-to-head next, and the Brit is able to control the early portions of the match with a front facelock, but the pair get caught up in the ropes and are forced to separate. Casey hits Anderson with a massive shoulder block moments later before latching on a side headlock, but barely has it locked on, which Double A takes advantage of, breaking free with a reverse atomic drop. Arn Anderson then hits a body slam before backdropping Casey to the atmosphere for a near fall. Anderson keeps his offensive up with a reverse elbow into a backbreaker for another 2 count, which the Jerkwad bridges out of, so he gets kicked in the ribs for his defiance. Steve Casey does have a brief moment of brilliance with a dropkick leg drop combination, but Arn Anderson responds with an elbow to the back of the Brit's neck. That unique front suplex of Double A's wins him the match right after. Crotchety David Crockett is next backstage with the new NWA Television Champion, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Sorry, it's just so gross saying that. Unlike Blanchard, who spoke highly of Rhodes earlier, the American Dream gloats about his victory at SilverStarr 85.
I'm holding what was belonged to Tully Blanchard, and there's no way in the world he ever gonna get it back.
What a disrespectful goof. We're shown exactly how Dusty Rhodes became the NWA Television Champion, before Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Tully Blanchard himself ambushed the American Dream from behind while he was celebrating his victory. While Baby Doll's cage was slowly being lowered to the mat, both the Awesome Twosome continued their beatdown on Dusty Rhodes until the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, attempted to come to Rhodes' aid. Instead, he gets his head smashed into the cage repeatedly by Chief McDaniel. You get what you deserve for sticking your nose into business that had nothing to do with you, Nature Boy. Back to the interview, Dusty Rhodes states that he was wrong to slap Baby Doll a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, go figure. And then asks the women in the crowd of Worldwide Wrestling to please forgive him.
I want to ask you, am I forgiven? You know what? Be good to your mama, because you only got one. And love your daddy. And
crotchety David Crockett's next guests backstage are the NWA World 6-Man Tag Team Champions, the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff, the Russian Nightmare Nikita Koloff, and Krusher Kruschev.
Crockett, just shut up for a minute and I'll explain to you.
Yeah, Crockett, shut up for a minute and let a professional take over. You may have noticed that while the American Dream Dusty Rhodes held the NWA Television Championship, he no longer had possession of the NWA World Tag Team Championship. That's because at SilverStarr 85, the Russian Bear Ivan Koloff and his nephew, the Russian Nightmare Nikita Koloff, defeated both the American Dream Dusty Rhodes and the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez to become the new NWA World Tag Team Champions. Finally, the championships have regained honor. On top of this, Ivan Koloff states that the three men are employing the Freebird rule when it comes to the NWA World Tag Team Championships, which means any two of the three men can defend the championships when challenged. This immediately puts them at an advantage because their opponents never know who they're going to compete against. Then, the Russian Bear lays out an open challenge for the NWA World Tag Team Championships for any team in the entire National Wrestling Alliance to come and challenge him and his men, before he and the Russian Nightmare Nikita Koloff head down to the ring to compete against Sam Houston and Gene Ligon in tag team action.
There is so much hate in the world. That's not the reason. That's not the reason.
It wouldn't be right to really call this a professional wrestling match, as it more closely resembles a slaughter. Both Koloffs have decent amount of time to demonstrate just what makes them the best tag team in the entire NWA without a shadow of a doubt, before a double team Russian sickle out of the corner on Houston secures them the win. Backstage again, crotchety David Crockett has words with that criminal, the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant, who introduces his old lady to us.
This is my main old lady now. My main old lady. She's never away from my side.
That moron does know that that's a baseball bat, right? Ugh. Valiant himself was involved in yet another heinous crime at SilverStarr 85 following the conclusion of a match between the Barbarian and Dick Slater. The Barbarian's manager, Paul Jones, along with superstar Billy Graham, were both brutalizing Slaughter until Jimmy Valiant came to the rescue with his old lady, beating Jones so badly that he's now in a hospital recovering. This is a disgrace to the sport of professional wrestling, to not only allow the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant to get away with the actions he committed against Paul Jones, yet also continue to compete while bringing his old lady down to the ring with him is just also outright criminal. Magnum TA and the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez team up to take on the RPMs, DJ and LP, in more tag team action next. And no, that is not Mike Davis and Tommy Lane. They resigned due to the corruption throughout the entire NWA. So stop asking already. Both RPMs suffer body slams from Magnum once the match gets underway, until Fernandez gets the tag and takes the fight to both DJ and LP in their own corner, knocking DJ to the floor before he enters the match properly with a tag. DJ goes on to suffer a tremendous amount of double team maneuvers, which focus specifically on his left arm. But the Raging Bull seems to let his guard down prematurely, as LP is able to hit him with an elbow once tagged in. The RPMs then proceed to return the favor to Manny Fernandez by double teaming him. In desperation, Fernandez tries to dive out of the LP's way, but ends up simply back on the mat, knocking the wind out of himself like a complete moron. The Raging Bull digs down deep and is able to recover, hitting a headbutt and a kick, which allows him to tag Magnum TA back in, who takes it to the RPMs before all four men wind up brawling in the ring. In stereo, Fernandez hits a flying forearm while Magnum TA hits a belly-to-belly suplex, which results in the RPMs hitting 0. The main event of Worldwide Wrestling sees the Boogie Woogie Maniac Jimmy Valiant, who's of course brought his old lady with him, taking on superstar Billy Graham, who will unleash terrible vengeance on behalf of Paul Jones. Before the match even begins, Jimmy Valiant continues his complete disregard for the rule of law, dragging the superstar out from the ring down to the concrete floor and strangling him with the TV cable. Disqualify Valiant right now. Fine him, suspend him, fire him, throw him in prison, and lose the key. Once both men are in the squared circle and the match is officially underway, Jimmy Valiant immediately latches a sleeper onto the superstar, but Graham is able to get to the ropes, which forces a break. Valiant follows this up by dropping 3 elbows onto Graham. However, the Barbarian and the Great Kabuki then do exactly what the Boogie Woogie Maniac did at SilverStarr 85, ambushing the criminal from behind and delivering much needed justice. Several wrestlers rush to the ring in an attempt to save Jimmy Valiant, but the damage is already done. Welcome to the consequences of your actions. The worst is yet to come. To wrap up Worldwide Wrestling and the week, crotchety David Crockett pretends like he's going to interview both James J. Dillon and the Nature Boy Buddy Landel, but just as Landel is about to start introducing himself to us properly, Crockett cuts the damn episode off.
You know, they talk about charisma. You talk about what's happening. This man is what happened. You need more time on this show.
What a pathetic little worm David Crockett is. He was so proud to announce the American Dream Dusty Rhodes as the new NWA television champion, and even more proud to announce the fact that Avalanche Buzz Tyler defeated Cowboy Ron Bass at SilverStarr 85 to become the new NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion. A lot happened at SilverStarr 85, but unfortunately I wasn't able to find any footage covering the event, except for what was provided on this week's episode of Worldwide Wrestling. The same thankfully can't be said for WrestleMania on March 31st, and after this week's special edition of Piper's Pit, I am so looking forward even more to Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff eliminating WWF Champion Hulk Hogan and Mr. T from the equation. You can hit the bell, like the video, and subscribe so you are with me every step of the way on the road to the first ever WrestleMania. You can also follow me on social media where it is 1985 in pro wrestling all over again. That's all for now, so I'll see you next week. So long. Not only is Leilani Kai a that's twice. Whoops. Gotta do that again because I forgot to have the remote or the clickety-click. Both Koloffs have time to demonstrate just what made them the top 10. Why did I do this? What am I doing?